Hello, this is Larry Durbin, Chief Executive Officer of Support Solutions. Welcome. I want you to enjoy a series of video trainings that we've developed to help you in your work here. As you know, we support nearly 500 people every day, and you are one of over 2,000 employees who are a vital part of that work. We've developed these trainings to assist you on the behavior side and on medical and nursing issues. We believe you'll find this information useful to you as you pursue your everyday performance, and welcome.
Okay, this training today is our training on how to say no without saying no. Okay? There are an awful lot of times when you guys have to set limits for the individuals you work with. Things that they want to do are dangerous, things that they want to do are too expensive, things that you can't do right now for other reasons. And there are times when you just have to go, hey man, no, we can't do that right now. And as everybody knows, when you say no, that's often a trigger for behavioral escalation, arguments, problems, fights. And so what we wanted to do today was talk a little bit about some of the things that seem to work a little better around how to set a limit and tell somebody that's just not going to happen in a way that's not going to be as likely to lead to a big behavioral escalation. Okay? So, a couple of things to sort of start with. My name is Michael Gavetti. I'm the Director of Clinical Services here at Support Solutions. I'm based in Memphis. I'm sort of the head of the behavior department. And I'm always available for questions. So if you need anything, if as a result of this training you got more information you want, a question you're just not sure how to handle something, please go ahead and call into the Memphis office. Ask them for Dr. G, Dr. Gavetti, Michael, whatever, and they'll transfer you right to me and I'll get you an answer as soon as I can. Okay? So let's start off on something. The first thing that's really important about this training is it sort of depends on you guys having read and understood the behavior plan and the ISP that's in place for your person. Okay? There are very few times when we really do have to say, no, absolutely not, you can't do that, okay? And those times should be pretty well defined in your behavior plan. They should be pretty well defined in your ISP. If the person doesn't have a behavior plan, it should be in the ISP for sure. Really, it ought to be in both if they have both. But the point is, start off as a part of your understanding about saying no with a really good understanding of when you gotta do it and when maybe there's a little more flex, when there's a little more room, okay? Because what you'll find is that the more you say no, the more irritated they get every time you say no. So as much as you can, you want to really identify those times when you have to say no so that you don't feel like you got to say no all the time for every little thing. The second thing that I think you're going to want to keep in mind as a part of this training, just sort of globally, is the idea that pride and respect are hugely important for these guys, okay? For you and I, we've got lives and successes and families and things to really be proud of, okay? We've done difficult things and come through it okay, and we feel strong. And as a result of that, when things come along and we can't do something, or somebody tells us no, or things don't go the way we like, we can sort of shrug it off. It's pretty easy for us. For many of the people we work with, they've had to face an awful lot of disappointments. Their lives really aren't going the way they want. They see themselves in one place, and their lives are very different. A lot of these people say, hey, I want to be out, I want to be living on my own, I don't want staff around, I don't want people telling me what to do, I want a job, a house, a wife, a girlfriend, and none of that is happening right now. And a lot of these guys have had an experience where they've really tried something, they've really wanted to do it, they've worked as hard as they could, and it just didn't happen. And at some level, they may think that they just don't sort of measure up some of the time. That makes these guys very sensitive to the idea of disrespect. They don't have a lot to be proud about, and so anything that challenges their pride or challenges their sense of self-regard, they're going to resist. And for a lot of these guys, they're holding on to their pride and their self-confidence sort of by their fingernails. And that is often more important than whatever issue is kind of being discussed. It makes these guys very sensitive to perceived disrespect. And so as a staff, we need to work really hard to kind of overcompensate the other way. We really need to make sure that everything we phrase to them is very respectful, very polite, because these guys will fight if they don't want to be no punk. You don't tell me what to do. No one tell me what to do. And they'll fight. And I don't mean like they'll argue. I mean like they'll fight to protect themselves on that issue. So remember, as you're going through this whole training, the idea of respect is hugely important for these guys, because no, almost by definition, is you exerting control over them, making them feel helpless, making them feel like they've been put upon, bossed around, and they're not going to like it. Okay? A third thing to remember is communication issues. Okay? Some of the people we work with, their verbal skills are really good. Okay? They understand everything that's said. They can communicate their wants and needs very effectively. They're really good at sort of expressing exactly what it is about something that's bothering them or that they really want. A lot of our other individuals, they have problems with that. Okay? They may have unusual communication, where they kind of understand what's said very well to them. They get it. But when they try to say something to you, it just never comes out right. It doesn't come out the way they want. Others, they may nod like they get it, but really they just don't get it. And in cases like that, we're going to have to be really sensitive to the idea that the way you were explaining it, they may or may not be getting. Okay? So as we move ahead and as we talk about these things, be aware that you may have to customize a little bit for your guy. Some of these techniques, the words may be too long, the stuff may be too involved. You may have to simplify a little. Okay? The good news is I've given you a bunch of different options here about how to work with that. And so if one of these things doesn't work for your guy, you got 9 other things that you can go with. Okay? So that's the basic intro to this thing. All right? What we're going to go on to now is the actual ways that you can say no without saying no. So here's where we talk more about how you say no without saying no. And I've got 10 basic ideas. A lot of these, they roll into each other a little bit. They're not completely discrete, but they are good ways of thinking about the situation and coming up with a new way to approach it. Okay? One of the first things you're going to want to do as you're looking at how to set a limit, how to say no, without actually having that word come out, is the idea of removing that word. Some negative words are real triggers. They tend to inflame people. And those tend to be refusing words. No, don't, can't, won't, stuff like that. Those words, man, they won't even listen to the rest of what you say. Hearing that come out of your mouth and they're off to the races. Okay? So as much as you can, you want to be thinking about removing those words from your vocabulary when you're trying to convey to them that, hey, this is just not going to happen. Okay? So what do you do instead, right? Like if you've taken that out, like what am I going to do instead? You want to use permissive words here. What does that mean? Softer words that convey the same concept can get you to the same endpoint without setting them off by having these trigger words like no. So like later, when we can. Maybe today's bad for that. Okay? You're conveying the same information. But because you've actually taken that word, don't, can't, no, mustn't, because you pulled that out, they're actually willing to listen to what you're saying. If you keep that word in, they're gonna start up without even hearing the rest of what you have to say. The second thing you're going to want to do is try to phrase things in a positive way. Okay? It can get really negative in these houses, especially the houses that have these sort of high behavior needs, right? It's all arguing, it's all fighting, it's all de-escalating, it's all rant, and nobody's happy. Not the person, not the staff, nobody. Okay? To the extent possible, what you're going to want to do is when you have to say something, you're going to want to phrase it in a way that uses positive or neutral terminology rather than negative terminology. What do I mean by that? Well, okay. Stop shouting. Makes perfect sense to me. But it does really feel like you're bossing them around. Because you are. You just told them to do something. Stop shouting. All right? If you can say that instead as, okay, remember to use your inside voice, that's reminding. Okay? They may do it, they may not do it, but because it's got a positive or at least a neutral feel, I don't know if they'll do it or not, but at least it won't set them off. It won't make them worse. Okay? So to the extent possible, what you're going to want to do is keep positive phrases in your communications. Okay? Instead of, no fighting, let's solve this peacefully. All right? That works a little better than the no, mustn't, just like we talked about before. If you've got to say you can't, not right now, we can't do that right now, really make the emphasis of your answer on when they can do it. Okay? So, for example, you got a guy, he wants to go home, he wants to visit his mom and dad, but like they haven't invited him. You know, they don't want him right now, they want him on the weekend, or they don't do visits during the week, or whatever, but it's Tuesday and he wants to go. It's really easy for you to go, no man, we can't do that. No, we just can't go. If you do that, and the guy really wants to go, you're going to get an escalation. Okay? What you might want to do is phrase the refusal in terms of when it's permissible. So saying, as soon as we get an invitation, we'll go. We don't have an invitation right now, but as soon as we get one, as soon as they invite us over, we'll get in the car and we'll go, I promise. Okay? And if you phrase it that way, you've conveyed the same information. We're not going right now. But instead of have it being, no man, we're not doing that. We can't do that. No, you can't go. No. Which is likely to set them off, going, as soon as they invite us, we're heading over there. You've said the same thing, but you've said it in a way they're more likely to want to hear it. Okay? And they may go, well, I really want to go now. And then you can agree with them. You can go, yeah, I know, I get it. You really want to go now. Man, I wish we could go now. But I promise you, as soon as they invite us, we'll go. They'll move on a little ahead, but they probably won't escalate. As much as you can, avoid absolutes. Those are words that have no exceptions. Things like always, never, must. Anytime you've got words like this, you want to try and get them out of your vocabulary. And there's two main reasons for it. One of them is they really don't leave you any room to negotiate. Always, must, have to, all that. There's just no wiggle room there. Okay? And what you need is an awful lot of wiggle room in this job. Okay? The second thing is, whenever you say, oh, you always do that stuff, or, you know, this never turns out right, they always want to focus on the one time that they think it was different. Okay? And whether it's true or not, what you've just done is you've started an argument. Because as soon as you tell them, man, you always get mad when we go to your mom's house, they are going to start arguing about the one time they didn't get mad. They're going to start escalating. It's a starter's pistols. So what you got to do is get these out of your like there I am using an absolute, right? But what would be helpful is to pull this out of your vocabulary as much as you're able to do it, because those words tend to be really heavy trigger words for escalation that just isn't necessary. As far as the questions that you ask, as much as you can, you want to try and use open-ended questions rather than yes and no questions. And I know that a lot of you don't know what that is, so let me explain. Some questions, when you ask them, the only possible response is yes, no. Are you going to clean your room? No. Are you going to clean your room? Can only be answered with a yes or a no. That's what happens. And if you ask that, and you go, are you going to clean your room? And they go, no. Then you're stuck. You either need to give up or you have to nag them. That's what you've got. Those are your options left. Okay? What you want to do instead, whenever you can, is phrase these questions in an open-ended way. And an open-ended question is a question that cannot be answered yes or no. It has to be answered with different words, more words. So if you go, hey, when are you going to clean your room? You can't answer when are you going to clean your room with yes and no. Now, okay, when are you going to clean the room? The guy goes, later. Or the guy goes, when I feel like it. Okay? Fine. What just happened there? Well, he essentially just agreed to clean his room, right? If you say, when are you going to clean your room? And he goes, later, he's essentially agreed, I'm going to clean my room. He's essentially agreed when I feel like it is, yeah, I'll clean my room when I feel like it. It's so much better to deal with than no. Because it means that 20 minutes later, you're allowed to come back to the guy and go, hey man, I get it. You said you wanted to clean your room later. It's later. Do you want to do it now, or do you want to do it another 15 minutes from now? Do you want to let it go a little further? Okay? Here, you're not ordering the guy around. You can phrase it in terms of, I'm doing what you told me. You told me you wanted to do it later on today. This is later on. Do you want to do it now, or do you want to put it off another half hour? We can put it off another half hour if you want. But again, you're holding him to his agreement. You know, it's not a yes, no. It's not a control issue. The guy's already said he will, and you can keep reminding him of that. But at least it gives you a chance to not have to get into the yes, I will, no, I won't, yes, I will, no, I won't kind of argument. Because you're like, man, I took you at your word. You promised me you'd do it later. We're coming up on later. So, there are times when you have to get compliance. Okay? Check your behavior plan. That's really where we should be looking for this. There are times when you have to get compliance. And when that happens, what you don't want to do is get compliance or exert control with demands, with directives, with orders. Pick up your socks. Clean that up. Go do that. You guys know as well as I do, if you start doing that, you're going to elicit a lot of defiance. Okay? What you want to do, and again, this departs a little bit from the saying no part, but it's all part of that same collective of having them do what you want and having them not do what you don't want, okay, is the idea of you're going to gain compliance in these situations not by giving orders, not by threatening to withhold their privileges. Don't clean up your room. We're never going to your mom's. Like, none of that. You want to do it by defining the choice that they have to face. Okay? So you say to the guy, okay, hey, man, we'll go to Walmart just as soon as you clean your room. And he goes, I don't want to clean my room. And you go, okay, that's cool. You don't have to clean your room. Hey, we'll see what's on TV. We'll go check crayons. We'll play Uno. That's fine. We'll spend the day in. But I don't want to stay here. I want to go out. Go, okay, great. Let's get working on your room. As soon as we get the room done, we can go out. Yeah, but I really don't feel like cleaning your room. Okay, no problem. We don't have to clean your room. No sweat. We could stand around outside. We can maybe do a picnic in the backyard. Yeah, but I really want to go see Walmart. Okay, great. Let's get started. I'll help you with your room. You're agreeing with everything the guy says. By defining the choice, do you want to go out? And going out requires that you clean up. Or do you want to stay here, which means that you don't have to clean up, but you are able to exert your control. By stepping sort of out of the whole thing, you haven't had to say, we are not going to Walmart. The room is still dirty. We're not going to Walmart. Like, you get into all that, it turns into a big fight. What you're doing here is he can't fight you. He can't defy you because you've agreed with everything he said. He says he wants to stay home. You say you're going to stay home. He says he doesn't want to clean his room. You say that's fine. He says he wants to go out. You say that's okay. You didn't change or negotiate the imperative. He still must have a clean room in order to go out to Walmart. But you've never once told him, no, you can't, you mustn't, any of that kind of stuff. You just defined the pathway towards success all these different times. For all of these things, you're going to want to pick your battles. There are an awful lot of times when you don't have to say no. Okay? There are a few times when you do, and we'll talk about that a little more in a second. But for every one of these situations, you should be looking very hard at, do I have to tell this guy no? I mean, it's raining outside and he says he wants to go to the park. Should we go? Well, probably we shouldn't. Should you say no? Well, what I would probably be doing in a situation like that is go, listen, man, it's raining outside. It's probably not going to be that much fun, but I really, really want to go. So you look out the window and it's a warm day. Does the guy have an umbrella? Does he have a raincoat? You say to the guy, listen, man, if we go out, you're going to get wet. You're going to get muddy. It means more laundry. It means a bath when you come home. If you're willing to do that, I'm willing to go with you. But understand that's part of the price you're paying to sort of be out and walking around in the mud kind of thing. And so you're not telling the guy, no, we can't go, but you are sort of explaining, there really are reasons why we shouldn't. And if the guy is like, no, man, I really, really, really want to go to the park. I understand I got to take a bath. I understand I'll have to do all that laundry, but I really want to be there, man. Then, let's go. Right? Yeah, it's inconvenient, and yeah, it's not much fun, but if what you're doing is you're avoiding a fight by allowing the person to do something that he's kind of allowed to do, And if he's made sort of an informed choice about, I get that I'm going to have to do all this work when I come back to sort of get myself cleaned up and get my clothes cleaned up and stuff like that. Like if he understands it, he probably shouldn't be saying no in the first place. So really, you're going to want to pick your battles. There are times when you have to say no, but usually that list is really pretty small. You can often get where you need to be in another direction. And every once in a while, you'll come across something where the guy's like, man, this is really important to me. And you may not have known how important it was. And if you just said no, you might have stumbled into a big fight. There are times when you got to say no. If you absolutely have to say no, and it's sort of a small thing, okay? I want to go to McDonald's and buy dinner, but he's got no money. Okay, it's a small thing, a thing that you're not likely to get a huge fight over. What I would probably do is say no, keep it simple, and move on. Man, there's no reason for us to go to McDonald's. You got no money. Listen, let's go look at the freezer. Let's see what you got frozen in there. We can defrost something. We don't have to do what's on the meal plan for tonight. We can pick something else. If you got it in the house, we'll cook it. So if it's a thing that is probably not going to lead to a gigantic blow up, and you have to say no, what I would be doing is go, listen, man, we just can't do it for this reason, and then quickly change the topic. Okay? Don't get into a long explanation. Don't get into a long argument. That's just going to go the wrong way. Make it real simple, real short, give them a reason, and then switch topic and move to something else. Okay? If it's something bigger, something that really matters to the guy, then what I would probably do is reflect the question back to them. Okay? Probably, if it's something that's hugely important, it's probably something that they've talked about before, and they've probably gotten an answer before. Okay? When that happens, when the person has asked this question and gotten their answer, but they still keep coming back and they really want it, and it really matters to them, what I would do is start by reflecting the question back at them. And what did we say about that before? The guy says, I want to keep an alligator as a pet. And there's just no way you're going to be able to say yes. And I said no. You go, okay, well, you've asked about the alligator before. What did you get told? What did they say before? They said, I can't keep it. Did they tell you why? Yeah, well, they said the vet won't take care of it, and it's illegal to keep alligators here, and the food costs too much, not have enough money to take them to the vet. And like, okay, well, cool, we got our answer. Let's go. As soon as they give you the answer back, you must change the topic. They will want to keep talking about it. But once they've answered their own question, they've sort of removed their justification for talking about it. So they're like, what did we say about the alligator? Oh, I can't have one because it's illegal. Okay, well, good. We got our answer then. Hey, listen, what's on for tonight? Because we got to plan out our TV for tonight. You did your CB day. That's all finished. So how are we... Because there's that really brief window when you could change the topic right after they've answered it. And it's unlikely that they'll keep going through the debate. They'll keep arguing about it. And so what you've done is you've essentially had them tell themselves no, and before they could sort of figure out what happened, you moved on to another topic, kind of kept them moving. And they may come back to it later, but at least you've diffused it for just that moment. Okay? The last thing, the 10th thing on our list, is understanding what's really being asked. Okay? And psychologists think about this as like secondary gain. Why are they asking? What is it that they really want? Okay. Maybe what they really want is what they're asking for, but they may have something else that they're really wanting. Okay? They may really just want to have a conversation. They may really just want to exert some control in the house and begin a power struggle. Okay? They may really just want to find something new to be discussing, or they may want to test the power and the structure that's in the home. They may have some other thing. There may be a relative that sort of put them up to this. Like, who knows? But for you, one of the best ways to sort of avoid the trouble is that rather than get mired in the no, you can't have that, to sort of do a little digging to find out more about what it is they're really asking for. Because what they're really asking for, if what they really want is attention, right? They're coming up to you and they go, hey, I want to talk about getting my hair done again. And you've already talked about it 75 times. They don't have the money. They can't do it, blah, blah, blah. But like, really, you think they're just bored. it's not really about the hair. It's just because they're bored. They may not even know that that's what it's really about, but they're really bored and they want to do something and they want to get out, and so they're asking about their hair. If you focus on the hair, like that's going to turn into an argument. That has you having to say no again and them getting upset and all the rest of it. Really, what you might want to be doing is going, hey man, or miss, or whoever it is, look, we talked about that before, that's kind of done, but look, it's really dull around here. What do you want to do? Do you want to play Uno? We get out to a park, we do a picnic, we could, let's get something going on here, man, because if we've just been sitting around doing nothing, this is really dull. Let's find something new. And if boredom is what's driving this person to make the request that you've got to say no to, if you could address the underlying boredom, they'll give up on their request, and you don't even have to argue about it anymore. You could be moving on different things. Okay? Yes, in the back.
Dr. G, what about the situation where you just have to say no?
Just have to say no. All right. So what you've got is a situation where, like, there's no, we'll do it later and I'll check in. It's just like, no, you can't have the bazooka, that kind of stuff. Yeah? All right. All right. So typically what I do with stuff like that, if it's a first request, sometimes I'll just sort of try and fob it off, change the topic, sort of move on to a different thing. Okay. Bazooka, man, we never talked about that before. Huh, weird. Hey, listen, what time is it? And, see sort of if you can move past it. Okay. Because people sometimes have sort of impulsive thoughts that cross into their head, and if you can kind of get them diverted down another path, they'll leave it behind. If they keep coming back to this thing and they just can't do it, typically the next thing I would do is say to them, well, listen, we sort of talked about this. What have people said to you? What's the answer been? Okay. And usually if it's a repeated request, they've gotten an answer from somebody. No, we cannot allow bazookas in the house. It's against the fire code or whatever it is. Okay. And then once they've given you the answer, so now you don't have to tell them no. Okay. Yeah, that's the way it is. And in cases like that, as much as you can, I want to try and find somebody outside the home they can blame. Okay? Hey, look, we rent this by our safety committee. They said no bazookas on the premises. It violates our insurance policy. It's not me. I know you wouldn't use it in the house. I know you would be completely responsible with the bazooka. I get it. Unfortunately, our safety committee is just not going to let this happen. I'm really sorry about this. That's what they said. It doesn't make sense to me either, but that's what they said. And so when you've got to say no, what you really want to do is try and have somebody else be the one who sort of said no and kind of remind them of that. So they're not mad at you for saying no. They can be mad at somebody else. Okay. Now you don't have to go all in with like, yeah, they're completely wrong. You should totally have a bazooka. You don't want to make life harder on yourself. But you can come to the whole like, man, the decision came down from up top and like, those are the chiefs and I'm just a little Indian here. Like, I don't, they're never going to cut the check to Biden. It's like, we're never going to. And you sort of throw it over that way. And then you're not having to be the one that's sort of giving them the bad news, and then you're the focus of their anger. You want to make sure they have fair and appropriate information. They deserve an answer. But to the extent possible, you want to blame somebody else.
I work with a person that when you try to tell him something he don't want to hear, he gets upset. What do I do in a situation like that?
All right, it can depend a little bit on what the issue is. Can you tell me what tends to sort of set him off?
Okay, this person, he wants to live in a high crime area, but I try to encourage him to live somewhere that they're safe, but he gets upset and starts going into having behavior.
All right, good. So what happens is he's got a thing that he wants and we just can't give it to him. We just can't give it to him. All right. Now my guess is you probably explained this to him before, right? You said this to him. All right. In a situation like this, rather than go back through it and argue through it again, which is just going to escalate the guy, usually what I would do is I would reflect the question back at him. What I would say is, hey, we talked about that before. Do you remember what did we say? And many times what the guy will do is go, because the crime is too high, but I don't think the crime is too, like, okay, well, the crime is too high. So you really understand that. You understand we got a reason. We're trying to keep you safe. Right. Yeah, that's what it is. If you can get him to answer his own question, you can usually avoid the escalation that's part of it. Almost always, you get a brief window right after you ask that question, and he's like, yeah, you said it was because the high crime, right then you got to give him a different topic to talk about. If you let it sit, he'll ask again, or he'll get back into it, or he'll want you to explain some more. So if you're like, yeah, okay, good. That's done. Glad we answered that. Where are we going today? What are we doing? And get his head onto a completely different thing. Because he's giving you back that bit of information, he's regurgitated what you said, he's not really asking the question. He already knows the answer. He's just hoping for a different answer. But there's that brief window when you'll be able to get off that without the guy escalating. That's what I do. Yes, question in the back.
Yes, I was reiterating on Charles' question, as in dealing with the client, as in they wanted to go into another behavior mode, as in, so you saying that we have to redirect them? Was that basically what you were saying?
Tell me a little more about it.
Like you said, that he has a client that wants to go and want to live in the hood.
Right.
And want another type of life, and we trying to give him a better life.
Right.
So when you said asking a question, you know, trying to talk to him, was you saying redirecting him?
Oh, okay. No. Yeah. No. Thank you. It's good that we follow up. Okay. So what I'm saying is, what you've got now is a pattern where he asks for something he knows he can't have. Mm-hmm. You say no because you have to say no, and he gets mad because he can't have the thing that he wants. Okay. That's the pattern going on right now. Mm-hmm. And so what we want to do is basically interrupt that pattern. Okay. There's a couple of different ways you could do it. In this particular case, because he knows the answer, what I would say is he asked for the thing he knows he can't have, and you've explained to him 100 times. And I would say to him, hey, we've talked about this. What did I say before? You're not asking him to agree with it. You're just saying, what did I say before? And he goes, we can't live there because it's dangerous, because it's in the hood. He may want to short circuit. He goes, well, I don't, but I want to live in the hood. And you're like, no. What did I say before? What did people tell you before? It's too dangerous to go live there. Okay, and you go, okay, good. I'm really glad that you understand. I'm really happy. You remember that so well. Hey, look, a bird. You know? All right? And so what you've done is you've interrupted his pattern. Okay. He's not able to do the, ask the question I already know the answer to, have you say no, use that as an excuse to get mad. Like, he can't do that pattern anymore. He's proven that he didn't need to ask the question because he already knows the answer. Okay. All right? He's sort of given it back to you. So he's sort of taken away his right to be angry kind of thing in his head. Okay. All right? And then you've sort of thrown him for a loop because you've never sort of done this before, or he just doesn't know where to go with it next. And now you've diverted the topic in some other direction, and now he's completely off his footing, and you've de-escalated the whole thing. Okay. Okay. Does that sort of make sense as a way to go with it? Yeah. Yeah. And you sort of need to be a step ahead. But the distraction you use, the redirection, it can be, look, a bird. You know, is that a squirrel? I think I saw a baby wolf. I mean, like, it doesn't matter. Like, whatever you do, but you just want to get his head moving in another direction.
From where he was at.
If you let it sit, he'll come back to it. If you get a really brief window of time to sort of get that train on another track, but you get it right there, and if you can hop on that, he'll go. Yes?
Dr. G, when I try to do this, my guy wants to argue all the time. Am I making things worse? For instance, if I'm asking him to clean up his room, which is one of his chores he's to do, and he gets upset every time, and he knows he has to clean up his room, so what do I do in that situation?
Okay, all right. So when I see things turn into power struggles, it's almost always because we're demanding immediate compliance. Okay? Immediate compliance tends to be the thing that escalates the situation the fastest. He's got stuff he's got to do. He absolutely does. And you're sort of in a position of being forced to sort of follow the rules. Like, if this is in the plan, if this is in the ISP, I kind of have to do this. All right? Where it always takes its bad turn is in the time when we're like, you got to do it, and you got to do it now, and you got to do it because I say so, and you got to, like, and once it takes on that tone. Now, I'm not saying you're like that. That's not where I'm at. But what I'm saying is that as far as this guy who wants to argue, it takes two to tango. All right. So you come to the guy and you're like, hey, you know, we gotta clean up your room before we can go, and he's like, I'm not cleaning up your room. You can't make me. And you go, no, it's totally cool, man. Just reminding you. It's fine. I'll go hang out over here. You come back 10 minutes later. You go, hey, man, just reminding you about the room. Shut up. You can't make me do my room. You're like, no, absolutely. I'm not even asking you to do it. I noticed that it was 10 o'clock already, and you had stuff you wanted to get out and do today. I didn't want the day to slip by. If you want to stay here, that's fine with me. No sweat. We'll stay as long as you want. But I just wanted to remind you about that. Yeah, man, no, whatever. Fine. And then he comes stomping out an hour later and he goes, I'm bored, I don't want to be here anymore. And you're like, oh, okay, totally cool, man. Let's go clean up your room so we can get out of here. I don't want to clean up my room. Oh, no sweat, man. I'll clean it up later. Cool, you'll clean it up later. No sweat. Fine, you set the time. It's good with me. I want to go, though. Okay, let's clean it up right now. That way we can go right now. Man, I don't want to clean up right now. Sure, no problem. We'll stay as long as you want. Take all the time you need. You're answering and agreeing with everything that comes out of his mouth, every argument he tries to get into, because really that's what he wants, is to make it an argument. So what I would say is you set aside. Yeah, you got another question.
So does that apply to him wanting to smoke? He wants to smoke. He knows he has to clean his room up.
Right.
He don't want to clean his room up, but want to go outside and smoke. Does that apply to that as well?
You know, the first thing I'd do is make sure you kick this back to whatever sort of behavior plan or other plan you've got in place, all right? Because I would be reluctant here to tell you something and find out that the plan said something different. What I would do is first go to the BA or whoever it is that's in charge and go, listen, in this situation, how do you want me to handle it? In general, what I would say to the guy is, it's really hard to argue if you're sort of human, okay? And so when I get stuck in a position that is sort of self-contradictory, one of the things I really like to do is to sort of share the dilemma, okay? So I'll go to the guy and I go, listen, man, you want to smoke. I get that you want to smoke, and I want you to smoke. I got a plan here that says you got to clean your room before you smoke, and so I really feel stuck. I want you to be able to smoke, but like I've got a plan that I have to kind of hold to, and I'm really feeling stuck. You know, how do we make this happen? Because I'm caught in between. I really do want to make you happy. I'll go and help you clean your room. Like, we'll get this done. It could take 5 minutes. That'll work. You're like, man, I ain't going to clean my room. I'm just going to smoke. And you're like, well, man, I'm really stuck. I just don't know what to do. I can't. The plan says I can't let you smoke. They'll write me up. They'll fire me if I do this thing. And then you're going to get somebody in here who's going to be even harder about this than me. You know, like, that's not going to solve your problem. Like, the only path I see right now to the smoking is the getting the room clean. Do you have another option? If you got another idea, I'm willing to listen to it. But sometimes if you sort of turn over the dilemma to the person, not make it that you have to figure out the answer all the time, at the very least, it bypasses a lot of the anger and emotion and control issues. Because you're essentially giving them control. Listen, man, these are the options that I see. If you've got another one, I'm willing to hear it. I'm willing to do it. But these are kind of the choices. And you can pick whatever you want, and I'll help you out with it. But like, that's what I see. And it gets really hard to argue at that level because you're not refusing, denying, controlling, any of that. You've kind of given it all to the guy. And now he's got to come up with a solution. Yes?
Okay, so I work with this girl whose communication skills aren't, you know, really up to par.
Right.
And so when she asks for things, you know, we can tell her no. We think we're saying no without saying no. And all she says is, okay, do you understand? Yeah, yeah. Next thing you know, she's busting a hole in the wall or throwing the TV or something like that after we thought that she understood.
Right. No, it's a really good question. Okay, got a couple of things to think about here. The first thing I would do is I would look at the kind of communication abilities that person has, okay? One of the things that's really common is to have someone whose expressive language, their ability to say something, is much less well developed than their receptive language, their ability to understand what's being said. Okay? So one of the first things I'd be looking at is is the disconnect that they just can't ask me for what they really want, or they're just not saying it right? Like, is that internal frustration that they're asking for the wrong thing and I'm responding to the words that are coming out of their head, but I'm not really meeting their need? Okay? So that's one thing I would check first. Okay? If you're pretty confident that they've asked the right question and that you know what they want, okay, the next thing that I see happens really commonly for people with communication skills that they're sort of struggling with is that we're giving them too much, okay? That we feel a desperate need to sort of explain it to them, but that if you've got a person who's got really remedial communication skills, if you give them the phone book, like, it's just peanuts, wah, 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 after a while. They just tune it out. They lose it, okay? Because it's really hard work for someone who's got diminished communication skills to sort of pay attention and focus. And it's very easy that it just turns into blah, 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 blah. So I typically use, with people who have sort of compromised communication skills, the thing I advocate for is what I call the 6-word rule. If you can't say it in 6 words or less, don't say it. Okay? So when you're doing your interventions with this particular person, if it's a message you really think they need to know, find a way to make it 6 words or less. Okay. You need to take a bath. Period. We'll go to the store after your bath. Real short, real small. Break them up really tiny. Okay? The last thing I would say, the third suggestion I would give in this particular case, is that everybody's got pride. Everybody's got a sense of self. And a lot of the people we work with just don't want to sort of admit that they are dissimilar in ability to the people that are around them. Okay? They just, I don't want to admit that I'm not an underwear model. I mean, like, everybody has stuff that they don't want to sort of come on board with. You know, like, that's the way it goes. These guys all have pride, and they don't want to look bad, and they all have heard in their childhood about how they weren't very smart, and usually some words a lot worse than you're not very smart, got hurt in their hearing. And so they all, as a regular pattern, do a lot of like, oh yeah, I get it, because they don't want to admit that they just don't get it. Okay? And so with that particular subset of people, especially somebody with compromised communication skills, rather than asking them, do you understand? Which is a response I don't have much faith in. Either she just doesn't understand, or she may think she understands and she really doesn't. What I typically say is, after I've given my response, okay, say that back to me. Say it back to me. Use your own words. And see what you get back. And if what you get back is your own words, then you can be sure that she understood it. I'll bet you, I'll put $1 on the table now that says the first time you do this, she's like, what? Like, and none of it stuck. None of it's there. And that you're getting the escalation because in her mind, she never got an answer. Okay? All right, in conclusion, as we talked about saying no without saying no, most of what we've talked about is the idea of, first, kind of understanding what's most important around saying no. When do you have to set a limit, and when do you have a little more room to maneuver? The second thing you're going to want to be thinking about in saying no is saying no to the right thing. You know, what are we really talking about here? You know, is it that you just can't do it right now? And if that's the truth, then one of the things that you'll be able to do is make your no a yes. Yeah, I absolutely. We'll go see your mom, I promise. As soon as she calls us to say she wants us, we're going to go out there, we'll get in the car, I promise. And then your no could be something different because it's not really no, it's just later. Okay? And then in times when it really does have to be no, being sure that you have to say no again. Because if they already know the answer, you have to respond to them. You have to say something to them. You can't just ignore them. But if it's something that they really already know the answer to, ask them. Say, listen, other people have talked about, what did they say about that? And they give you sort of their answer. And then you can immediately redirect and move on to the next thing. And that way you don't have to get mired in the same argument over and over again. You have a chance to get involved in completely new arguments. Okay. Thank you very much for participating in the training today. I appreciate your time and attention. Thank you very much.